Landscapes are culture before they are nature. They are as much defined by our cultural perceptions as they are the physical layers of rock that form them. This was the belief of English historian Sir Simon Schama way back in 1995. He didn't know it then, but he was nurturing the concept of biocultural conservation, an idea that landscapes are made up of hundreds, sometimes thousands of unique biocultural values. At its core, these values are defined by an inherent link between their cultural and ecological importance. Hello, my name's Jonathan Parker, and this video is about my study of biocultural values at Bull's Head along the foreshore of Sydney Harbour, what they mean and how they can best be managed and preserved for the future. Once a site for fishing, shelter and tool making for the local Camiegal clan, the Bull's Head landscape has been the subject of continual change since European colonisation. In the early 1920s, it became home to the most advanced coal loader station in Australia at the time. It would go on to operate for over 70 years until 1992, initially to supply fuel for the coal-burning steamers of the British India Line, and later for coal export to Japan from the mid-70s. All of this did not come without protest, however, including by famed Australian writer Henry Lawson, who foresaw the damage such a project would have on the visual appeal and ecology of the local environment in his poem The Sacrifice of Bull's Head. Much of the bushy headland had been stripped bare by the 1930s. There was subsequent beautification scheme in the 40s, and a total transformation of the area in 2011, driven by government, council and community action, has restored the area to what it is today, with the Coal Loader Centre for Sustainability. This study of local biocultural values was completed using CyberTracker, a software designed to capture data on environmental observations. By developing an app using CyberTracker, we could record biocultural values with GPS locations, photos and notes. We then coupled this primary fieldwork with government data covering land use, vegetation types and registered Aboriginal sites. We worked with the data in ArcMap to produce a number of maps using features such as the clipping tool, attribute tables and the summarize tool. In collecting our results through CyberTracker, we divided biocultural values into various categories: animals, plants, rock, built heritage and water. Our results found 59 separate sites of notable biocultural values. 27, or nearly half of these, were plants, many of which were native species of trees and shrubs, like the Sydney redgum, casuarina trees, and lomandra grasses, and several species of banksia. Animals accounted for a further 16, or 27% of recordings, including birds like the Australian kookaburra, reptiles like the eastern water dragon, and arachnids like the golden orb spider. The remaining quarter were divided into built heritage like the preserved coal loader tunnels, rock structures like this indigenous engraving of a whale, or water-based values like this artificial wetland designed to filter runoff before entering the harbour. The sheer variety of biocultural values that have been restored, preserved or reintroduced to the area has been a huge conservation achievement, and the importance of which was reinforced in 2021 with its heritage protection status given the highest ranking. Clearly the decades-long restoration works at Bull's Head have returned a place of largely native flora and fauna and revitalised cultural connections in creating a place for social activities and education. The artificial wetland is an example of these shared biocultural values, restoring biodiversity, improving water quality and promoting sustainability. As sacred sites like Bull's Head can be a keystone in connectivity and conservation, it is crucial that management and preservation efforts are continued into the future. According to Basva Sheeran, it is therefore fundamental to empower and facilitate key stakeholders in the community. In the case of Bull's Head, developing adaptive tools and strategies around First Nations peoples, like traditional fire management and seed-saving practices, would be beneficial and encourage greater Aboriginal involvement. I further recommend continued promotion of cultural tourism through educational means like interpretive signage about plant and animal identification, or through partnerships and collaborations with local stakeholders, businesses or tourism operators to develop sustainable tourism-boosting initiatives. Bull's Head, through its turbulent history, has evolved into a leading example for sustainable development, cultural preservation and wildlife restoration. The work of conservation, however, is a cause that has no end. These efforts must continue to be managed and their values preserved. If this can be achieved, Bull's Head will no doubt become a model for future biocultural success.